Ohio State took care of its business at Wrigley Field, dispatching Northwestern and really setting up what is becoming the third most important Big Ten game of the season. I think the first would have been Ohio State-Oregon. Oregon edges out Ohio State 32-31 at home. Perhaps we're going to see a rematch in the Big Ten championship game. And then Penn State-Ohio State. Penn State could not score a TD offensively against that Ohio State team. And now, with Ohio State taking care of Northwestern, we're setting up for what I think is the third biggest game in the conference this season. And who would have thought at the start of the season that we were going to be talking about undefeated Indiana and one-loss Ohio State playing for what feels like it's going to be the right to play in the Big Ten championship game against Oregon. I'm saying that as I expect Ohio State to get the win against Michigan, and I expect Indiana to get the win against Purdue, and then we'll see. But I think this game is wildly intriguing, especially knowing that you got the number 2 scoring offense in the country in Indiana, and you've got the number 2 scoring defense in the country in Ohio State. An Ohio State team that has looked dynamic defensively since giving up those 32 to Oregon. Now, I'd also add in here, they haven't really seen a quarterback that is ready to test that secondary like Dylan Gabriel was able to since then. Drew Aller just didn't have it that way. I think Curtis Rourke has an opportunity to do that. And now we're getting into the conversation around the Heisman if Curtis Rourke can have a big game against what we know is one of the best teams in college football. And that's the thing about Indiana that we all want to know, and that's the thing that we all get to see. Because we know where Ohio State rates across college football, put them up against an SEC team, put them up against a Big Ten team, put them up against a Big 12 team, put them up against an ACC team. You know what you're probably going to get. And that's why we got 2 teams at the top of the college football playoff rankings representing the Big Ten. Now, Indiana has beaten everybody they play except Michigan by 14 points or more. The knock on them has been its schedule, right? Who have they played? To which I would tell you, every team that they had played up until they played them had a winning record, right? Like they had been able to dispatch people. Nebraska was beaten so badly that they simply have not been able to win since. They were 5-1 when they faced Indiana. Indiana dropped them 56-7. And then Nebraska was able to push Ohio State into the deep water, right? 21-17. And I'm looking around and I'm going, okay, which one are we going to get? So could that game really be indicative of just how good or bad Ohio State is? I don't know, because of what they did at Autzen. I think Ohio State is falling into that trap that Georgia has fallen into, which is they kind of play to the level of their competition. We want to see them be dominant against everybody they play. It's not always so. Here of late, it's felt that way. When you get 250 pass yards out of Will Howard, but 100 of them are going to Jeremiah Smith, you're doing something right. When you're getting close to 150 yards rushing out of your tandem tailbacks that is Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson, you're doing something right. But more than that, after going down 7-0, you're able to score and score and score. I like where Ohio State is. I also enjoy that Indiana gets to go on the road for this game because there will be no doubt about how good or bad that Indiana team is given all that's stacked against them, right? Curt Cignetti is, for me, Coach of the Year. I know that there's a lot of folks that think it should be Prime, and I get that. There's a lot of folks that think it should be Dan Lanning, and I get that. But we have never seen a program turned around that had never basically won at this level. We're talking about a team that's 10-0, right? They've never been 10-0 at Indiana ever. Their best seasons were 9-win seasons, and they only had 3 of them. Now they are essentially a win away from playing for the Big Ten championship in year 1 of what Curt Cignetti has done, and going to get the right guys and getting guys that, frankly, are chippy. Like, I have a piece coming out next week where I got an exclusive interview with Curt Cignetti to ask him about program building, ask him about how repeatable something like this is, and why he was able to pull off this outstanding turnaround in such a quick amount of time at a place that hasn't been used to winning, but was hungry to be a winner. I'm really excited for you to read that piece. He gave me a lot of time and answered my questions in full, took me in some directions that I wasn't prepared to go and was able to follow. I love it when those interviews happen that way. It is a head coach who really wants me to understand his program, wants me to understand who he is, understand what Hoosier football is about. It's why I've been calling them Hoosier Daddies, man. I had been saying this program was going to need me to rank them. Like I said, need me. They're going to have to force me to, right? I mean, I was talking about this going into week 4, week 5. No, Indiana's going to have to start killing people. And that's what they have been doing. They have been killing people. I have them as the 4th best team in college football going into the start of this weekend. Somehow, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee has ranked them behind a 1-loss Penn State. I don't get it. I refuse to get it. I don't know what sport they're watching, but the one in which we are seeing Indiana play, they're a complete football team, right? I think that right now, if you put Indiana up against Texas, you're going to get a fair fight, right? Both of those teams are good enough defensively and great enough offensively to give you fireworks, and that's really what we're talking about. Where are we going to get our best matchups in the college football playoff when the 12-team bracket is set? If I see Indiana, Texas, I'm salivating right now, right? We'll see what it feels like in a week. But I had asked him, like, this is idle week for Indiana. How are you preparing for Ohio State? And he's like, same way that we prepare for Nebraska during our idle week. Hello, they put up 56 on Nebraska. I thought that this is really cool for us to get this out of a league that we thought was going to be dominated, by Ohio State, by Oregon. But we've been surprised, right? We've been surprised by how good Indiana is and how, bad USC is. And on the other side, we've been surprised in the SEC, how good Vanderbilt is, how bad Oklahoma is, right? I think this is a really cool space that we're in right now. Now, it's Northwestern. We know that. We understand that. We get it. It's also at a cool venue, which, sometimes it can take you out, sometimes it can take you back in. But I'm also just going to point out to you that they could have allowed for Northwestern to go move the football, and they decided no. They're going to hold them to 6 of 16 on third down. They're going to create turnovers. They're going to get 4 sacks in this game. It's the defensive line that we finally wanted to see. It doesn't feel as basic as it once was, right? It feels like right now we're talking about an Ohio State program that has found its way offensively and defensively, and we're finally getting to see that offensive line begin to gel. I think that's the part of this that everybody was worried about going into the season. And then when you had the injury to Josh Simmons and you have to move Donovan over and you have to try to make this work with 3 guards on the left side of your offensive line, how good are they going to be? They're becoming the MVP of this team, mostly because of what they've had to do, right? The one knock I still got on Ohio State is Denzel Burke still getting cooked by dudes he shouldn't be getting cooked by. That could be terrible when you got to go face Elijah Surratt and Omar Epps over there at Indiana. Like, those two dudes can get after you and really make it hard on you down the field. So we'll see. I think that they got a shot here to be great. I think that they're going to need to improve their offensive efficiency just a little bit more. Being 3 of 9 on third down is never what you're going to like. I'm sure Ryan Day and Chip Kelly are going to clean that up. But on the whole, getting to this spot where you get to play a good Indiana team, it'll be the 3rd top 10 team they play this year and the 2nd top 5 team that they play this year. Ohio State's schedule is right there. It is one of those programs where if they were to lose that game to Indiana, we really have to discuss whether or not putting them in the 12-team playoff, but I think you're still going to get there because of what Indiana has shown themselves capable of doing. Excited, man. I'm excited. I'm glad that Ohio State handled its business early, and now we get to focus on what is going to be the biggest game of the weekend on Saturday, leading into the all-important rivalry week the following week, and then we're playing for championships.